By the design of Pope St. John Paul II, this Sunday is Divine Mercy Sunday. Divine mercy is a loving manifestation of God in history. Wounded by sin, God has come to the aid and rescue of the human race. The death of Jesus and his rising from the dead is the supreme manifestation and action of divine mercy. To ransom a slave, he gave away his beloved son. Like the disciple of Christ, we too have been deserting, unfaithful, and unbelieving to him. From the desertion when the disciples abandoned him to live for Emmaus, also going fishing as led by Peter, and today remaining in the closed doors. All this shattered the heart of Jesus. But the way out of this is not staying behind closed doors. Yes, we have turned our backs on him, failed him in so many ways, but Jesus does not condemn us, nor is he angry with us. It is because he is the God of mercy. This forgiveness he has towards us comes from the treasury of mercy, which is inexhaustible. This Christ we have known, this gospel that we have received, are not to be kept silent. We are not to keep the gifts of faith locked behind closed doors or locked in our hearts, but we must share it and profess it. We must become a spark of Christ's light to ignite the flame of belief and faith lying fallow and dormant in people's hearts and lives. For there is no real safe place in the world without Jesus. His presence makes the most dangerous places bearable. The presence of Jesus Christ behind a closed door made a fearful disciple fearless and full of faith. Initially, they were confused, doubtful, elated and scared, but they became bold. When Jesus appeared to his disciples, he left them with 5 gifts. 1, his presence. 2, his peace. 3, a mission. 4, a companion, that is the Holy Spirit. And 5th, a message of forgiveness, a gift of mercy. So Jesus shows them his wounds, not as signs of failure, but as trophies of victory. The wounds become doors and windows of mercy. So he did not erase his wounds after the resurrection, but he kept them so they can become access points to attaining his mercy and love. They are now channels of grace. They are not signs of shame, but fountains of mercy. Saint Faustina said that mercy is the most essential attribute of God. So surprising among the apostles that fear had locked them in, but he sent them out. As the Father sent me, so I am sending you. He breathed on them. This is seen as the evocation of the creation story in Genesis, where God breathed into Adam's nostrils the breath of life. Now Jesus' gift of the Spirit makes us a new creation. So there is no room to hide and seek here. But some of us still hide ourselves behind closed doors, behind some certain closed doors in life. First, doors of isolation. This is when we are locked behind isolation. We lock behind the power of God to change lives. We hold and keep to ourselves the good news and the gospel message of Christ. When we do not interact and meet with those who do not believe. Doors of anonymity. This is when we remain anonymous to the truth, when we remain neutral to faith. And in that way, we make it difficult for people to discover truth in us. Doors of superficiality. This is when we talk freely about worldly affairs and immorality and back them up. Then we cooperate with the world's intention to ignore God and to displace him, and any subject that might lead one to seriously cause perspective. Now, these are lessons we must pick from Thomas's action. Like Thomas did, we have no right to require God to prove himself, but God has every right to expect our belief and obedience. So it is not necessary to have external sight to come to faith. It is not necessary to feel and touch to come to faith. It is not necessary to have tangible evidence before we can come to faith. We who believe without having seen are invited, like Thomas and the other disciples, not merely to believe in the resurrection, but to believe in the revelation of Jesus as the Son of God. 2. Doubt is not always the opposite of faith. The real opposite of faith is a certain kind of fear. Fear makes you coil up and do nothing, or it makes you run away. Faith pushes you to take chances, to risk yourself, to put yourself against difficulties. Thomas was a careful man, but he was not a fearful one. He was capable of fearless action. Remember, he said, "Let us go to Jerusalem and die with him." He said this in John chapter 11 verse 16. It is not that Thomas lacked faith, it is simply that he did not want to be deluded. He wanted to see the holes that the nails made in the hands and put his fingers into the holes they made. He wanted to experience it for himself. So when you doubt, don't stop there. Let your doubt deepen in your faith. Let it lead you to know God more and not to distrust or to disbelief. Thirdly, it is difficult for us to believe when we do not strengthen ourselves with the fellowship of others. Now, when we observe keenly, we see that Thomas paved way for the other apostles to encounter Christ. And this was what John confirmed when he said in 1 John chapter 1 verse 1. He said, "What we have heard, what we have seen with our own eyes, what we have watched and touched with our hands, this is our subject." There is no blame to Thomas for wanting to experience reality for himself. He did not doubt Jesus or lack trust in him, for this was the same thing other disciples wanted, but seems that they lack courage. So Jesus permitted them to touch him in every way and also convince themselves that the very body that suffered was risen. The very body that was disfigured is now transfigured. So let no one object or doubt or question the resurrection. But then, why was he missing from the group when Jesus Christ appeared? For him to be outside the time Jesus appeared showed that he was a fearless man. We dishonor him when we call him Doubting Thomas. We should call him a Thinking Thomas, a fearless Thomas. There is no area of life more subject to delusion than religion. We have to thank Thomas for this distinctive combination of carefulness and courage. Finally, to make sure that God's mercy and forgiveness are always readily available to all his followers, he instituted the sacrament of penance. He breathed unto them and said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit. Whose sin you forgive are forgiven them, and whose sin you retain are retained." The sacrament of penance is the sacrament of God's overflowing mercy. So every validly ordained priest forgives sin by the power of God. And through this, the ocean of mercy is made open that all may swim to grace, that all may swim to love, and that all may swim to the fathomable mercy of God.